that they don't know. For as long as you're in love with me, our love will grow wider, deeper than any sea. And of all the things that I want in this whole wide world is just for you to say that you'll be my girl. And wanting you, I'm so
As unique and important as Chess was, there was another company just 6 blocks down the street that also made history, VJ Records, the most financially successful black-owned record company before Motown.
Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go.
VJ started in 1953 with a doo-wop group called the Spaniels. Their catalog covered blues, jazz, gospel, R&B, and rock and roll. In fact, VJ was the first American company to sign the Beatles.
What you have to know about VJ Records is that the V stood for Vivian, and the J stood for Jimmy, which was Jimmy Bracken.
Everything was special about VJ Records. When somebody said, what was special about VJ Records? Okay, VJ Records was started by a woman who had been a waitress in the Club de Lisa. Her name was Vivian Carter Bracken. She was a student of Al Benson, and she went over into Gary and started a radio show and opened up a record store. And out of opening up this record store, said these people come in here and they buy these records, and some of these records are hard to find. And she told her husband, who owned a little shoeshine parlor and stuff, and said, why don't we start making these records?
So Vivian and her husband, Jimmy Bracken, took a $500 loan from a pawn shop and built a multi-million-dollar business.
well, I tried to tell you, baby, run, make no sense.
When Vivian and Jimmy were auditioning one blues singer, a backup musician named Jimmy Reed caught their ear. They asked him if he'd written any songs, and Jimmy said, no, but I've made up a few. Jimmy Reed became the label's top blues man and helped VJ give Chess a run for its money in the blues market.
Well, it's a shame, shame, shame. Oh, it's a shame on you.
But you don't find artists like Jimmy Reed too often. A hit record has to be crafted, and Calvin Carter, the label's chief producer and Vivian's younger brother, was responsible for the creative side of VJ.
Calvin Carter was a strange mixture. Actor, musician, politician, crybaby, ex-Marine Corps. He had this soul, this thing inside of him that heard unusual talent. Calvin Carter was a non-musician musician. I mean, he didn't play anything, but he could hear everything.
He loved me, I want to know. How can I tell if he loved me so? Is it in his eyes? Oh, no, you'll be the
I recall the Shoop Shoop song with Betty Everett, and he had people stomping on telephone books to get that doop, 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 doop.
Oh, yeah, or is it in his face? Oh, no, it's just a charm.
People often wondered, how in the world did he get that sound out of the bass drum? And it wasn't the bass drum. It was people stomping on telephone books.
Yeah.
Calvin knew talent, and Vivian understood what was happening and could play it, and but they didn't have the knowledge of the industry or the background to take it beyond where they were, and Jimmy was smart and knew that. So they kind of brought me in and immediately made me general manager of the company, and 2 years later made me president.
Not only was he a genius in terms of marketing and merchandising, Hubert Abner was one of those guys who could stay up for 3 or 4 days at a time and just entertain people and hypnotize them and draw them into his spirit.
And I had some dreams and some visions, see, about it. I had watched the white companies. I had watched Chess take Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon. I had watched Atlantic in New York, you know, and saw what they did. And so I said, hey, man, you know, this talent here, we can do this.
Abner knew black DJs were vital to record sales, and in those days, DJs were paid to play. Not only was it legal, it was expected.
I was the bag man for the company. By that, I mean I take the bag out, cash type money out, because even though you sent the jocks the checks on a regular basis, this was sort of like a retainer. See, this was a retainer to keep the relationship cool, okay, so that your records can be at least considered to be played. Now, when you want serious play, now that's a whole, that escalates to another level, see. Now you got to go out there and you got to put the green on them, okay. And you got to be a friend to do that. You know, we go to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, get wasted with them, party with them, play cards with them. I mean, they became friends.
With Abner making the connections, VJ artists were getting airplay on black stations around the country. They had every kind of music a black audience could want.
I love the way you walk. I love the way you...
From the blues of John Lee Hooker to the doo-wop hits of the Magnificents and the El Dorados. And gospel songs from the Staple Singers and the Caravans. Record sales soared, and so did black businesses along Record Row. Despite racial barriers and segregation, Record Row was a rare place where black entrepreneurs could grab a piece of the American dream.
He would end up taking a backseat to a man named Electra Clark.
I don't know why. Don't know why. There's no sun up in the sky. Stormy weather. Stormy weather.
Stormy Weather by Pookie Hudson and the Spaniels was another record that received pop as well as R&B airplay. This was the direction that VJ was heading toward. Calvin Carter, the label's A&R man, was good at picking new talent. He managed to pull Jerry Butler away from Eddie Thomas and his group, The Impressions. And when the group fell on hard times, so did Eddie, according to music historian Johnny Meadow.
He was shining Jerry Butler's shoes. 3 records later, Jerry Butler was a soloist. The Impressions were an act with Curtis Leading that wasn't meeting with any success. And Eddie Thomas, who was the manager of The Impressions, was now Jerry Butler's chauffeur and valet.
I had to suffer a little bit, and I say suffer. We all have to go through a suffering period. Jerry Butler was doing well with VJ Records, and the group was starving. And Jerry asked me to come on the road as his valet. And I said to myself, that's going to be a tough job to swallow, tough pill to swallow to go out and do that, but it might give me a chance to meet some disc jockeys across the country, make some friends, make some contacts, and I thought about that side of it. I said, everywhere Jerry would go, I could make friends. I said, it would work out. And I could save my money, and that's what I did. So took me a little while to save up enough money, and the group, we saved Curtis and I, put our little coins together. And when I came back in off the road with Jerry, we went in the studio, and we recorded a song that Curtis wrote that I thought was just fantastic, called Gypsy Woman. And we recorded it down at Universal Studio downtown and paid our little money we could have, put it together. So then I knew I had to go to New York to try and get a record deal, but I had to wait until we had an engagement in New York because I couldn't afford to travel to New York. So finally, we got an appearance that Jerry Butler, I'm speaking of now, had an engagement at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Never forget that. So during the daytime, I would sneak downtown, not necessarily sneak, but I would go downtown early, get up early, and try and peddle this master. I went to RCA Victor first, and I talked to Ray Ellis, and he said, well, I can't see this being anything, I can't picture a black group singing about a gypsy woman. This didn't sound right. I went to another company, RCA. Well, RCA was the first one, I'm sorry. Then I went to a couple other labels. Then I finally went to ABC Paramount. Clarence Avant was there. Clarence and I became good friends. He liked me right away, and he took me in. And Larry Newton was the president of ABC Paramount Records. They didn't really need a group because they had B.B. King. They just had B.B. King, they had Ray Charles, they had Paul Anka, Tommy Rowe. So they were, and Lloyd Price. So they were doing quite well. But their theory was, well, hey, they weren't going to give me any advance money for the master, so they had nothing to lose. And their motto was things that they didn't care about too much. If it sticks, fine. If it doesn't, forget about it. But to me, it meant life. It meant everything to me. It meant my whole world. But this is where my traveling with Jerry paid off, because I met a lot of DJs all through the Carolinas. You know, we traveled all over. And everywhere I went, I made sure I go to the radio station to plug in Jerry, but I also plug in myself. I said, when I come on the record, you guys give me a hand. And I never forget Philadelphia, Lloyd Fatman, Georgie Woods, Rockin' Robin. These guys were, and a promotion man named Matty Singer. They called him the Humdinger. David Rosen was our distributor, took over. And we really got it started. Those guys really gave me a big push, and then the record started happening.
And Gypsy Woman became a monstrous hit.
From nowhere, through a caravan, around the campfire light, a lovely woman in motion, with hair as dark as night. Her eyes were like that of a cat in the dawn that hypnotized me with love.
She was a gypsy woman. She was a gypsy woman. Yeah.
She danced around and round to a guitar melody. From the fire, her face was all aglow. How she enchanted me. Oh, how I'd like to hold her near and kiss and forever whisper in her ear, I love you, gypsy woman. I love you, gypsy woman. All through the caravan, she was dancing with all the men, waiting for the rising sun. Everyone was having fun. I hate to see the lady go, knowing she'll never know that I love her. I love her, the gypsy woman, a gypsy woman, a gypsy woman, a gypsy woman.
While Jerry Butler was being readied for pop acceptance, Calvin Carter discovered a new voice in one of his local groups. It belonged to a young man named Delector Clark. His first name was shortened to D, and he quickly surpassed Jerry Butler as VJ's top pop star.
Hey, little girl in the high school sweater. Gee, but I'd like to know you better. Just swinging your books and chewing gum, looking just like the juicy plum. Hey, little girl. Hey, little girl in the black silk stockings. Gee, but you got my heart rocking. Wearing that crazy skin tight skirt and that crazy ivy shirt. Hey, little girl. Hey, little girl, can I come along? Carry your books and I'll hold you on. I'm hoping that you tell me yes, because you're the girl that I love best. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, little girl in a high school sweater. Gee, I hope you're feeling better. Not just like the time before. Remember when you closed that door? Hey, little girl. Hey, little girl. Hey, hey, little girl.
Delector Clark had a long career, actually, as an entertainer. He started with Red Saunders Hambone Kids in the early 1950s. Then when he was in high school, he was part of a group at Marshall High School called the Golden Tones. He made some records for VJ under the name The Cool Gents. That's what they called the group, named after a Chicago disc jockey, Herb Kent, the Cool Gent. Actually, Herb at the time, I think, was at WBE in Harvey, Illinois. And later on, again, the same group, they did some covers. They called themselves the Delegates, D led. Then finally, D wanted to go solo. And initially, they made a couple of records that weren't too successful. But, once again, if Calvin believed, he believed. The streak started with a record on Abner called Nobody But You. And after that, Dee Clark had hit after hit after hit. Just keep it up and see what happens. How about that? Hey Little Girl in a High School Sweater.
One of my favorites.
And of course the career eclipse with the record he'd never topped. Got to #1 on Cashbox, #2 on Billboard.
Oh, raindrops, so many raindrops. It feels like raindrops falling from my eyes, falling from my eyes. Since my love has left me, I'm so all alone. I would bring her back to me, but I don't know where she's gone. I don't know where she's gone. There must be a cloud in my head. Rain keeps falling from my eyes. Oh no, it can't be teardrops, for a man ain't supposed to cry. So it must be raindrops, so many raindrops. It feels like raindrops falling from my eyes, falling from my eyes. Rain keeps falling from my eyes. Oh no, it can't be teardrops, for a man ain't supposed to cry. So it must be raindrops, so many raindrops. It feels like raindrops falling from my eyes, falling from my eyes. It keeps on falling, falling from my eyes. It keeps on falling from my eyes.
And why was Dee Clark so successful? Eddie Thomas said he had the perfect pop appeal.
Because he went pop, you know, with something very few black artists had an opportunity to do during that era. Because the pop stations were not playing black artists. No matter how big the record was, they wouldn't touch it. That was something that the black artists are enjoying well now, quite well now. But at that time, crossover pop, it had to almost sound white, and Dee Clark was as close as they could get to sounding like a white artist, but yet he had the pop crossover song. So Dee Clark was top dog, I would say, at that time on the label.
But there were plenty of crossover successes for VJ. Dee Clark was one of them, with pop hits like Raindrops and Hey Little Girl.
Dee had an amazing voice, a clear, tenor, penetrating voice, and could just sing his butt off.
This throbbing in my brain, so strange I can't explain, but I like it. I like it. Like it. How about that?
Dee was a man who sounded like a woman in the high register, and that was unique. I said, wow, what is that?
His music, probably 75% of it sold to white people. It wasn't what you call real soul. It was called, we used to call it the happy flute sound because they used flutes in the background of the records.
How about that?
That's right. By the late 50s, VJ's expansion included gospel music, introducing such talents as the Staple Singers, the Five Blind Boys, and the Swan Silvertones. And they broke ground in the jazz field, signing artists like Eddie Harris, Wayne Shorter, and Lee Morgan. With Dee Clark leading the pop roster and Jerry Butler the R&B side, VJ picked up a release on Gladys Knight and the Pips, and they picked up another release on a fella by the name of Gene Chandler. He was the Duke of Earl.
The Duke of Earl. Actually, the Duquesnes. But when Calvin heard this, he told Bunky Shepard, who produced that record with Carl Davis, he said, I like that. Hold that. I like that. And Bunky said, you can have it. Well, they put the record out, and typical of many things that happen in the record industry, it was not initially a success in the USA. The Duquesnes were only selling rhythm and blues records. It was a hit in England. Okay, they named Eugene Dixon, the lead singer, Gene Chandler after Carl Davis's favorite actor, Jeff Chandler. And they were advertising, it's #1 in England. Well, that may have been really the forerunner of the English invasion here, because it sure took off and became a #1 record here like Pronto.
It took 8 years, but VJ finally had a #1 pop hit with the Duke of Earl. And Gene Chandler toured the country dressed in a top hat and tails and a monocle as the Duke.
Duke of Earl, Duke of Earl, Duke.
In 1962, two independent producers, Bill Bunky Shepard and Carl Davis, brought a song and a singer to VJ. They had a hunch that he'd be a sensation.
As I walk through this world, nothing can stop a Duke of Earl.
I put the song together in a rehearsal. We were just opening up our throats, do, 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 going up the stairs. And I just told them to say do, do. It was really do, 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 D-O-D-O. And we began to say do, do, do.
I said, we got to cut that tomorrow, because the session was the next day. And they said, wait, no, we don't have no lyrics for this song. I said, well, go home and write something.
And it was, to me, a strange sounding record. Duke, 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 Duke. There's a whole bunch of Dukes, you know. But Calvin said, Calvin Carter, in the ear. Calvin said, Ab, that's a smash.
I'll never forget, we released the Duke of Earl November the 5th, 1962. And by Christmas, it was almost a #1 record in the country.
The Duke of Earl sold over 1 million copies and helped make VJ one of the most successful R&B labels in the country. But for Abner, it wasn't enough. He wanted VJ to tap the dollars of the white pop market. To do that, the label would need more than crossover music.